to everyone for helping to get clarification related to this. So, sponsor, again, property rights are paramount, right? And in Tennessee, like, this matters significantly. I've worked with Mr. Clyde Robinson and Miss Molly Robinson, Mrs. Scotty Fitzgerald, who were facing eminent domain lawsuits before. So this is an issue that's extremely important to me, and the taking of people's land and the possibility of folks' land being taken is something that is just of paramount importance for our district and for our community, having had to fight eminent domain lawsuits before. While I agree completely with all of the 4 points that you mentioned, people need to prove the public use. They need to have a schedule for the completion of the project. They must have cash and financing, and there needs to be a determination of whether other property is available. All of that is listed in Section 1, I am 100% in agreement of. What I am not in agreement with is Section C. And this is what my amendment was focused on, colleagues, because while all of those things are important, I believe, and I think most of us believe, getting those things checked out, anytime eminent domain is being used is important. I do not believe that we should have an exemption. And so what Section 4 says, Section C says, is this section does not apply to condemnation actions for projects or uses regarding streets, highways, roads, bridges, transportation, utilities, utility water, public water projects, sewer, and electricity. I don't care if someone was building a park. I think all 4 of these requirements that are listed above need to be considered before we allow someone to use eminent domain to take our land or to take our constituents' land. And so I just want to understand from you, why are we given these exceptions for these other uses instead of requiring everybody who use eminent domain to have to go through the process that's outlined above?
Chairman Faison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Pearson, I'm encouraged that 80% of the bill you agree with, and you would think 80% you could vote with me, but I get it. So the last part, let's just have a brief conversation amongst us about the last part. The truth is every one of us, unless you spent the night right here in this building, got here because of eminent domain. The road that you come in, I-40 from West Tennessee, it was taken. There is a understanding in America and in Tennessee that when the overall greater good for everybody is achievable, that there's sometimes property has to be condemned for everybody. I'm just doing my best to get some parameters for when you can obviously see that the condemner is trying to benefit themselves. If I can stop the condemner from trying to benefit themselves or their buddies, I feel like I've done something good in the state of Tennessee. But when the condemner, the state or local municipality, is doing something greater good for everybody, I think we probably need to be careful going down that aisle.
Representative Pearson.
And I understand that. But my thing is, if you are doing good for everybody, why can't they just go through the steps outlined above? They would be able, if it's for the good of everybody, which I totally agree, having streets, having highways can be used for the public good, but we have to also remember the communities that get displaced in that process, the neighborhoods that get separated and split apart. But if you are able to prove, as you wrote in the legislation, 1, you have to prove that it's for public use. 2, you must have a schedule that you're going to complete the use after you take ownership of the property. 3, you must have cash and financing. 4, you must ensure that there are no other properties that are around that you could otherwise take to fulfill the process. Why wouldn't we want, regardless of what they're building, street, highway, more sewer systems, all those things, why wouldn't we want them to come to us as a landowner and say, I meet all 4 of these requirements? I just don't think anyone should be beyond the reach of protecting property rights, of enshrining that regardless of the use, hopefully it's a good public use, regardless of what it is, they are going to come to those landowners, come to our constituents and say, hey, I meet all 4 of these requirements. That's why this is in effect. And so having an exemption for anybody is what I take issue with, because I want to protect everybody's property rights regardless of the exact uses that we're exempting here. And so for that reason, that's why I cannot support the legislation, but I appreciate you for answering the questions.